Hello, readers, and welcome back to Reading in the Middle, the podcast where we explore the stories, imaginations, and creative journeys that make books leap off the page for young readers. I'm your host, Anisha Jeffries. Today, I'm joined by someone whose storytelling is as heartfelt on the page as it is visually stunning on the screen. Alan Barillaro, Academy Award-winning animator, filmmaker, and author. Many readers and viewers know him from his work at Pixar, but today we get to step into the world of his newest book, Bunns Rabbit. A story full of wonder, emotion, and that unmistakable Alan Barillaro magic. In Bunns Rabbit, Alan weaves together adventure, vulnerability, and hope in a way that speaks both to young readers and grown-ups who love them. We'll talk about the inspiration behind the book, how animation influences his writing, and what it means to create a story that's both playful and profound. So, find a cozy reading nook, settle in, and help me welcome the brilliant Alan Barillaro to Reading in the Middle. Alan, hi, welcome to Reading in the Middle. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Alan, a question.
Sure.
Bunns Rabbit opens with the image of a rabbit, Bunns, born with small but perfectly functional ears. Yet, the Warren calls them a bad omen. When did you first hear that idea in your head? A rabbit whose difference becomes the seed of her story.
You know, I wish I had like this perfect, like I was, sitting in my chair and it came to me. With my ideas, they take time, over a lot of time, and they kind of percolate up as I go. So you work in all little things, and there's a lot of little seeds of an idea, I would call it. And you're not sure which ones are going to grow and grow and grow. So that idea came to me really looking at the rabbit, and I'm not very inventive. It's a rabbit in my backyard that would come in our backyard all the time, and a fox that would come in our backyard. And the story starts to unfold. I usually fall in love with a character, and then I start wondering about that character. It kind of just captivates me and gets my curiosity, and then the story starts to unfold. The what ifs of what could happen to this rabbit, what adventure would she go on, what relationship does she have in the fox that might not be as obvious, kind of comes together.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, the book is beautiful, and your background in animation is so rich. You've directed and created visually stunning films. How did working in a world where every frame matters influence how you wrote and illustrated Bunns Rabbit?
Oh, that's a great question. And then what a way to put it, because it's true. We we joke it's because it's 24 frames a second. So in the movie, sometimes in animation, you say 24 mistakes a second. And the art forms inform each other. I think it's very comfortable to me as an artist to you don't want to necessarily get pigeonholed. They have each kind of medium has its own strengths. And you draw on that. They draw on those influences. But you're also, I've always been a big reader and a love of books. So it was just a wonderful opportunity to take a break even from animation and move towards children's book writing and illustrating.
Oh, well, I'm glad you did. Uh, this story is one listener. So in the story, Bun's father says, "A heart song cannot lie," and that line stuck with me. What does heart song mean in your story, and what does it mean for you as a creator?
It's a device in the story that, and this is where I'll explain my story logic of seeing someone's inner self, not the words they use, but who they really are, and kind of, it's a story of empathy and belonging. So, and that was really important to me. So my logic with rabbits and kind of the what if with rabbits is that thumping action that is a way of talking. The way they thump their feet was a lot like a heartbeat, and that in their heart, that what if rabbits in this very fantastical world without humans also had this very special power of empathy that they could see beyond or beyond the words and people's fears and issues, and actually kind of get to the bottom of that. And that's kind of the impetus of the story that kicks things off. And Bonds in particular has a special gift with this.
Yes. Now, for middle grade readers who sometimes feel odd or outside, what do you hope they find in Bun's journey through meadow, myth, and magic?
Well, Bonds is called a bad omen because of her difference, and difference is seen as bad in this meadow and the superstition. That's a very, to me anyway, looking back, and always just as a human condition, you're aware of your differences, and sometimes the instinct is to be like everyone else and hide that. And this story's there isn't a character in the story who isn't a little different and feeling on the outside looking in. So that's kind of the structure I really wanted kids to feel like, that this is how everyone feels. It's what you do about it, and our sense of belonging and how we fit in, and what happens if we give away that difference. If we're not celebrating that difference, what happens? So Buns kind of go on that journey, and
And also, Alan, nature plays a big role. The meadow, the burrows, the night forest. If you led a sense walk with a class after reading Bun's Rabbit, what three sounds, smells, sights would you ask them to attend to?
oh, what a beautiful idea! So three sounds and three sights. I mean, I love the feeling of in my stories, I'm trying to chase this concept, excuse me, of connecting with nature and not being above it. And however you would connect to that in that moment of listening would be really important. Um, and I don't, to me, I'm very curious to, in a sense, I'd almost put it the other way of being quiet for a moment. What would you hear that would surprise you? I always find that really interesting. You think, I know when I walk out, in nature and you're just listening, I'm always surprised at the sounds that I didn't think I'd hear or I would hear. Um, and kind of becoming attuned to that, whether it's a bird in the distance or like in Where the Water Takes Us was big for me, or in Bun's Rabbit. So I'm not really answering your question very well. I'm very yeah, I'm kind of curious to sit down and just kind of, in a way through, be curious to find out something new, because there always is in my mind.
Alan, you've answered it. You've answered the question. Thank you.
Thanks.
No, and I agree. It's good to just be quiet and be still, and you can hear a lot from that. And that's
Yeah.
important too. I mean, it's hustle and bustle of everything. It's just so good to just have a moment of peace. It's good to you never know.
Yeah,
Unexpected.
exactly.
And for me as a librarian, I'm always thinking about book clubs and discussions and things like that. But
Mhm.
if you were pointing to one scene in Bun's Rabbit that you'd like teachers or librarians to pause and talk about, which one would it be? And what question would you ask?
I would, maybe it would be, I love the friends that Buns meets on the way. There's this adult world that's full of its own superstitions and myth. And if you notice, there won't be one adult that has in this world that has the same answer for Buns, which I feel like is a lot like when you're growing up. You have to kind of decide these things for yourself. But when she runs into friends on the journey, and they're trying to figure out, there's a moment with Loon and Buns where Buns notices Loon's legs, because like a real loon bird, they're far back for swimming. Loon, as a bird, cannot walk very well on the ground, and Buzz sees that as a negative, and Loon explains it as a positive, and is almost actually very insulted by that, even the concept. But it's just that that idea. I think that's a great scene for the tone and the feel of the book, and the kind of discussions that kids might have based on a scene like that.
And now and I forgot to mention, if I didn't ahead of time, listeners, also not only did you write the book, but you illustrated the book, which is a different kind of challenge than writing alone. What has been the biggest aha moment you discovered moved from film frames to book pages?
Well, you have no one to blame. If you're a writer, you can say there's 1,000 monarchs, and then when you're the illustrator, you say, "Who wrote this?" what? Someone has to draw this, I want to complain. So I've only myself to blame. Honestly, the structure of this book was a big, sometimes the story is the first thing, and often that's the case with me. But in this case, it was the very structure of the book I was after to express, which was, in film, when we say, you want to make the film that you want to see out there in the world that's not there. And for me, as a parent of three, and at the time of my kids, I was really noticing this jump of they're in picture books, and then they're skipping chapter books and going right to graphic novels, even in like the bookstore or the library. And I love graphic novels. I have tons. My house is full of them. It's just there's a point where it's like, no, chapter books are beautiful too. And I even remember that moment as a kid being really feeling daunted by the task of, oh, there's not that many pictures and how thick is it versus the story. So I wanted to create a story that was a mix between graphic novel and chapter book, and this bridge is what I would like to call it. And that kind of drove everything. And, often I like to dive into things that are naively, and then, the real process of, well, how do you tie down a manuscript when the illustrations are, when you have so much illustrations, how do you figure all that out? And that's where I lean on my film experience, which is to say you do it over and over, and it has to have this flow. So for me, I think my naive approach was a real strength in the end, even though it was a ton of work, which meant, sometimes in traditionally you would lock the manuscript and have that, and then fill in the illustrations. That's just not how we approached it together collectively at Candlewick. It was, if the drawing, it was important to me that the illustration and the words go together, and that you don't have a situation. I really was frustrated as a kid if I read in a chapter a full description of a character, had all my imagination in there, and then I saw an illustration that didn't match, and a lot of it feels like repeat information. So there were times definitely in each chapter where you go, the illustration already shows that, or maybe cut that word, or maybe redo that illustration.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that because when I was young, I didn't even want illustrations in my chapter books. I
Yeah.
just wanted to imagine it on my own. I didn't,
Yeah.
illustrations kind of messed it up for me. I didn't want to see any interpretations. I just wanted to read the text and just go from there.
That's a great point. I think it's really worth noting, and I try to be very cognizant of that in my first book, How Much You See of Ava, Where the Water Takes Us. There's certain stories you have to decide as an author or artist, how close are they to the characters and the viewpoint, and how much you really want to share. Because truthfully, you can't compete with someone's imagination, and you have to leave room for it. So that's the danger when you move into a fully illustrated novel that now you might be taking up too much space, and you're actually doing the story a big injustice.
Well, don't hear me out. I'm not saying I don't mind the illustrations, but I always remember books as a kid reading them, and they had illustrations were sparse.
Oh, I'm with you. Like I take it as like a pact with the reader at the beginning. Like you're that's going to be that type of story, or it's going to be this, and you have to be consistent. I like both, but I also I love your point, because you also want to be very aware of it, and it's not something to be taken lightly. You know what I mean? Like the imagination of the reader to me is the thing. It's a shared experience. That's what I love about books. Whereas movies, you're a little bit more passive. You're watching the whole time. You're very active when you're a reader, and that to me is like extremely exciting to be a part of and to play with. Like you're right, Bunns is very illustrated. And then Where the Water Takes Us, my first novel, is barely, just as subtle as possible. Whatever's right for the story is the answer I kind of go towards.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned Where the Water Takes Us because that was your earlier novel,
Mhm.
and explores a lake, a journey, change. Bunns Rabbit explores field, warren, transformation. What thread do you see connecting your two major books so far?
Well, I would even go even back to my short film, Pixar Piper. Thanks. That that's very much a theme for me. I I'm not sure why. I grew up in Canada, in Niagara Falls. There was a lot of water and nature. I'm not. Um, it just it's affected my storytelling. That type of storytelling where I like seeing characters that are trying to find their place in the world versus conquering it. that I think that's needed right now. And not to be on a little soapbox, but since you invited me,
Go on.
just it could be the hero's journey is a great story, and I love aspects of it, but I do love characters that are trying to find their place in the world and haven't figured it out, and nature being a part of that and that connection. And sometimes that means being in such a fantastical world that really I can focus on that. And this rabbit that's going to leave this warren and have to see this greater world and find out where she belongs in it.
Yeah, I think a lot of us forget how much we're connected with nature, and it's so important to know that without it, we wouldn't be here. So we have to take care of it and be mindful of it as well.
Yeah, and take solace in that. Like it feels very, to me, it's very comforting too that we're all in it together versus above it. That to me is yeah, it just it settles me more than worries me. My themes do revolve around that sometimes. Yeah, and especially Bonds. I mean, the story about belonging, but then also this character with great empathy.
Such a lovely story. And if you could give a young writer, illustrator one invitation after reading Bunns Rabbit, what would it be?
Ooh. You know, I love work that inspires me and then sends me in a different direction, even if it's a disagreement of never mind the Beatles. I want to make punk rock and roll. Like you always want the art form to be an interesting conversation that sparks something new, and it's great for the art form if you're a writer. Um, you know, I I reacted to not finding this book out in the world. So, I hope there's a response to there could be more. That's not the way to do it. I think we don't give kids enough credit for being so versatile of what they can read and how, structure wise of like they could go from a script to a graphic novel to prose and poetry and they'd follow along. I like playing with that form and treating my readers with the respect they deserve. I hope that they're really smart and intelligent and will catch on fairly quickly to all this.
Yes, and I noticed that Bunns Rabbit is an indie pick. I did notice
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
Congratulations
Yeah,
on that, right?
yeah, absolutely.
We just mentioned graphic novels, so many scenes in Bunns Rabbit use graphic novel style panels, like full spread illustrations and prose, for librarians looking to teach, and educators too, teach visual storytelling. What would you point out as a key moment where picture and text do something together?
Well, I guess the graphic novel comes up when we go to the past and we describe the myth of this world. This is a very large world. I'll give something away and say it's the first book in a series. So this world is very large, and I had to understand its own mythology and the structure. I think it comes in chapter 2 or 3 where the parents are explaining the mythology of what they think the fox is a great example of maybe some more traditional film skills you have to learn, which is the visuals. The visuals say as much, if not more, than the text to tell you what's happening in the tone and feeling. I love that. I love when you can the image can give you as much as, or if not more than some of the text, depending on the story beat. That's the most fun thing to play with. You put that beside this wonderful thing that I don't get in, when you're working animation and film, which is the deep interiority that you can do with a book is just amazing and nothing can touch it. So to play with both and have both tools, that to me is just, a dream come true. You get to do both. Yeah. It really is. Yeah, yeah. You can never do that in a movie. You'll never be able to dive so deeply into a character's thoughts and really feel really with them. And that personalization of like being with a character so intimately is so hard. You're at a distance a little bit in a movie in comparison. So, and they all have their strengths. So I love playing with both. To me, it's like picking up, paintbrush, and watercolor, and then switching to sculpture. Not that I'm proficient at it. It's just that you play to the strengths hopefully and discover something new about your own storytelling. And hopefully that's exciting for readers and moviegoers.
Well, it's exciting for me.
Thanks.
As well. Now, you once said that being different is often where the story begins. How do you hold on to that idea as you write for young readers, especially when markets or trends might push towards safe?
Yeah, yeah. As an artist, that's safe is the most dangerous thing. If I'm not, how do I do it? I will admit that if I'm not a little scared of the project, there's something wrong. Like if there's in a part of me that's like, ooh, I don't know if you can do that. That you might fall flat on your face. If I don't have that feeling, I worry that I'm being really derivative, and it's already been done. So I remember being on certain movies at Pixar, my animation career, where you know it was so daunting how to complete it and technically and artistically that you're a little frightened to even be on the picture. And that to me is this feeling you want to have as an artist. You want to feel like you're pushing, and I think that that'll rub off on the reader even if you don't make those goals. I would suggest to writers out there that you'd want to just shoot for the moon as much as possible. That's what pushes you, that's what pushes the medium. That's where you get something interesting. So yeah, I would say I have to feel that spark when I start, on any project, or else I'll lose interest too. I think we forget that, writers are readers too, and hopefully good readers, and we get just as bored. What's happening in the middle of this story, even with their own work. I'm not going, wow, that's wonderful. Most of the time, I'm saying, whew, all right, you gotta do something here. This is you're treading water. Let's going.
Now, you've created characters, like I mentioned before, who cross boundaries, seas, metals, and fears. What does journey mean to you right now as a creator?
That journey of there's a journey of a character that no, there's so many aspects to it. There's your own journey as an artist. There's your journey as a human, just learning in the world and evolving, and that reflecting back in your work. I always like a character going on more of an internal journey than necessarily the physical one. Like what change will they go through? You don't want to be so easy on your character, even though sometimes I'm like, oh, poor Buns, give her a break. This poor little rabbit has already had to, first day, you're already running off in a meadow, already threatened, already in trouble. And that's just the beginning. I would like to say it gets easier for her in book two, but it absolutely does not. But I would say she's ready for it. She's, once you know who you are, then it becomes what kind of person will you be? What kind of citizen will you be in the world? And that's a bit of the journey ahead, is a little bit of a sneak peek.
Now, you mentioned book two. Will there be
There will be, yeah, yeah. This took 10 years to create after Piper. This was the first project I wanted to do, and left Pixar, the animation studio, for. And it's because I wanted to write both very close to the same time frame, so that I really know where I'm going with this very big world in my mind. so
yeah.
so yeah, yeah. Book two is actually completed, and what we're gonna. It was a really fun endeavor, and I hope everybody really enjoys that aspect of it. That the Buns is just beginning. I like to have Easter eggs in the first book that hopefully will pay off for book two. So there's that aspect of it that I'm really excited about as well.
I am. And I must say, I have to congratulate you on Piper. You won an Oscar. You won an Academy Award for that. That was a wonderful
Terrifying,
achievement.
terrifying. Yes.
How did it feel walking up there? How did it feel?
You're asking the kid in school who never wanted to get up and, would just draw in the back of class hiding. Never, please don't put me in front of the class. How it felt to go in front of the class. You know, at that point, I really wondered, why didn't like hire an actor to play me? Like, no one's going to know. Why am I up here? But, it's a wonderful experience, not necessarily for what's obvious. Like the event is great and all that. And like I said, the anxiety of getting up is on stage is something I could do without. But I would say that the week leading up is extremely creatively wonderful, because you're hanging out with a lot of the folks that are being nominated, and the story that's probably worth mentioning is everybody has the same feeling of what it took to get there, and that they're just as surprised that they're there. That so many people said no, the same way as an author, you'll hear so many people say no to your manuscript, and then almost the shock that we're there, but that there is something in each story of the perseverance, or there's a place where you could have just stopped and not told your story. Or there's a million times the film could have ended, not been funded, not you ran out of energy, or just, and seeing it through, to me, was the big gift of it, that everybody took a bit of a risk. Going back to your point about difference, that it wasn't a film. That year Moonlight won, and it was an amazing movie that Barry Jenkins, that was his second movie. It was Beale Street was supposed to be his first film. Like, just amazing efforts and work to do what they do. So a big inspiration for me in that.
Okay, now, Alan, get ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
You took all of my
I'm gonna take a sip.
Yeah, take a sip.
I took a sip
It is
of water, by the way.
okay, good. Because it's time for our lightning round. Now,
Oh, okay.
listen to
I missed this part though, so now I'm excited. I missed.
Listen to the whole
I had to get to the end. Don't.
a few.
I was getting there. It was now we're at the spoiler.
Now you
Okay.
are part of the lightning round that I
Okay.
give all of my guests. So
Okay.
I don't want you thinking too much.
Nothing.
Just answer what comes to your mind.
Okay. Okay.
Ready?
Definitely.
All right. If you were a rabbit in the meadow of Bunns Rabbit, what would you do first?
Find some good flowers to eat.
What snack keeps you going when you're illustrating a big scene?
Ooh, Trader Joe's mixed nuts and cranberries. I don't get any money for it, but those little like mixed nuts bags, those are great. Little chocolate sometimes fruit. Yeah, Trader mix. I guess go trail mix. That's a better answer. But
they always have the cutest little snacks.
Exactly. Yeah. Good for authors.
Yeah.
Chewing on ideas, going, I can't figure this out. You just take some of those trail mix and you paste. That's my
chewing the pencil. You're chewing on some.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Now, if Bunns Rabbit had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh, wow. Gotta think of that. So I give that away. What is it called? Can I say it's a Duke Ellington song, Sentimental. What is it? I always think about it. In a Sentimental Mood by Duke Ellington.
You should start a Bunns Rabbit playlist on
Spotify. Yeah.
I always tell authors to do that. Like,
have
a playlist for your book.
I do have a playlist. I always listen to music and pick songs that kind of shape when I write a book or work on a movie. So that was one of them.
Nice. Now, which of your own characters still surprises you when you visit them?
They all do. They all have attitudes, when they come back and tell you. There's a point where they tell you the story, where you know them well, and they kind of know you well, and they argue. Yeah, Ava is a strong character from Where the Water Takes Us, in my mind, who won't wait for me for anything and will just move ahead the way she needs to move ahead. So I think she would be the one. Bunns would be kind enough maybe to let me say something first and then tell me the answer.
And the last question, what object do you imagine Bunns keeps tucked in her little pouch or pocket for courage?
Well, for the story, the trillium flower will have a big importance, and that'll mean something deeper and deeper as it goes. So I'll say that answer, knowing that it's not a full answer until book 2.
Okay. Cliffhanger.
Exactly. I'm just answering it honestly. So if I don't say that, when you get to book 2, you'll be like, come on, it was the trillium.
That's fine. That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for being with me today. Bunns Rabbit is a story that whispers to anyone who's ever felt small, other, or not sure where they fit. And it reminds us that sometimes the very thing that makes us feel different is the thing that sets us free.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Just a pleasure talking with you, and I thank you for being on the podcast.
Same. Thank you so much. Anytime. Hope to talk to you again in the future.
Oh yeah, number 2. Book 2 is coming.
There we go. There we go. Subscribe and like. There we go.
Thank you. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, there it is.
Thank you so much, Alan, for joining me for this thoughtful conversation. Bunns Rabbit is a beautiful example of how stories can help us see ourselves, find courage, and celebrate the things that make us wonderfully unique. If today's episode inspired you, made you curious, or just made you smile, please follow Reading in the Middle, leave a review, and share the show with your fellow librarians, educators, families, and young readers. It helps bring more incredible storytellers to the podcast. Until next time, keep reading, keep exploring, and keep discovering the stories that shine a light in your world. I'm Anisha Jeffries, signing off from Reading in the Middle. See you soon.